I'm going out tonight. Try not to die.
The Watchers is a 2024 movie about a group of people that are trapped in a building in the middle of the woods by unseen creatures. Now, I'll be honest, I avoided this movie for a while for reasons that had nothing to do with the film itself. Now, I remember seeing the trailer in the theaters, and although it didn't look great, it was certainly within my world to just kind of go see it and hopefully be surprised by it. That was until I found out more of the details of the production, and that kind of threw a big bucket of cold water on me. Now, this movie is based on a novel by A.M. Shine, but the script is written and directed by Ishana Shyamalan. Now, if that name sounds familiar, it should. That is M. Night Shyamalan's daughter. Now, this is her first feature film. Her previous experience was directing a handful of episodes of the TV show Servant, which is also her dad's show. She's never been credited with anything that wasn't directly tied to her father. Now, let's be real. Nepotism is a pretty common thing in this world, certainly not exclusive to film, although film does tend to get more publicly chastised for it. I mean, Henry Ford died in 1947, but a sizable chunk of the Ford Motors Company is still owned and operated by the Ford family. So that's normal. But as a filmmaker who worked on countless low budget projects, had to scratch and claw for every dollar to make grossly underfunded movies, to see someone this young get an opportunity like this, it's frankly depressing to me. Now, what she does with it, I'll get to in a minute, but you don't get handed the keys to a $30 million feature film debut when you're only 25 unless you have a good inside track. And that's what this movie cost, $30 million. Now, just to give a small bit of perspective here, Christopher Nolan's first feature film called Following was made for $6,000. His second feature film, the much acclaimed Memento, was made for only $9 million. Tarantino's first feature film, Reservoir Dogs, is made for $1.2 million. Catherine Bigelow's The Loveless, $800,000. Steven Spielberg's first movie was a made-for-TV film called Duel and made for $450,000. Now, that's not including his very, very first feature called Firelight when he was 17, which cost a whopping $400 in 1964. And finally, just to bring it around home, M. Night Shyamalan's first movie, Praying with Anger, was made for $750,000. Now, I'm not saying she can't be a good director. As always, the final answer comes in the finished products that she makes. If this movie was amazing, this would be more background noise than anything else, as largely the ends can justify the means. So putting all that baggage aside, was this movie good?
Earn this. Earn it.
No, it wasn't. But not in the way I would have expected. Like, it's drawn out and praised far too much at the altar of mystery and secrets. It also has a kind of logic where it makes sense, kind of, when you hear it, but if you think about it for a second, it just completely falls apart. Now, from a technical level, it's actually quite good. It's moody, it's artistic, the production design is well done, and the general atmosphere strikes a nice tone. Now, where this movie fails is with its script. Dialogue is terrible. Characters spout exposition to no one except the audience. The characters themselves are all kind of flat and boring, mostly cardboard cutouts, just there to kind of drive the plot forward where it needs to go. Performances themselves are weirdly stilted and wooden. Now, I know this is based on a novel, so the story is relatively outlined for the script, but man, nobody acts like a real person in this movie. The movie itself centers on Mina, an American expat living in Ireland and works as a pet store clerk. She's tasked, for some reason, to drive a single parrot out into the middle of nowhere about a day's journey in the northern part of the country. While driving out there, some unseen force kills her car and she's forced to leave it and go on foot. Instead of sticking to the road, she decides to go into the forest and stumbles across a bunch of strange noises and is eventually found by three people living in a giant room in the middle of the forest with a single glass window. She's told that anybody out after dark will be killed by the creatures of the forest, and you can't reach the edge of the forest before nightfall. Although she kind of did come from the road to there before nightfall, so I don't know, whatever. Let's not think about that. To give everybody a handy visual reference, they have these points around the forest that are markers that are called point of no returns. They literally say that on the marker. We're told that these markers are exactly a half a day away from the building.
It is about a half day's journey from the coop.
So once you go beyond the marker, you can't get back to the building in time before darkness. So here's one of those weird logic moments where it sounds kind of fine when you hear it, but if you just think about it, you might question, well, when were these markers built? Because there's a little thing called Earth's orbit that has a little to do with sunlight. Like Ireland's amount of sunlight varies quite a bit throughout the year. In December, it's an average of 8.5 hours, but in June, it's almost 16 hours. So it's not exactly a one-size-fits-all solution. Apparently, they were built by someone named the Professor. Although, once you get to his story, it doesn't make sense why he would have built them in the first place, given his reason for being there. And that's the central problem here. Nothing connects retroactively. This script is the equivalent of a shark. If it stops, it dies. So it just keeps pushing forward, hoping you won't think about it. Now, when Mina arrives, she is presented with the knowledge that she is now trapped, as they are in this room. They're free to leave during the day, but at night, they have to stand in front of the window to be seen by these dark creatures of the forest. There are specific rules that she's told that apparently were passed down to them by the creatures.
Do not turn your back to the mirror. Do not open the door after dark. Do not go near the burrows. Always stay in the light. The Watchers allow us to live because we follow their rules.
Now, the crazy thing is, Mina kind of just goes along with all this without much resistance. She just kind of accepts it in this ho-hum attitude. I think Dakota Fanning is a fine actor, but her performance here is so understated given the situation she's in, it's kind of mind-boggling. This had to be a direction style because it permeates through the whole film. It is said that anyone who sees one of these creatures doesn't live to tell the tale.
No one sees a Watcher and survives.
So you might be wondering then, well, how did they learn the rules if no one has interacted with them? Like, where did they come from? Why did they obey them? And to be clear, this isn't a situation like these are human implemented rules in order to keep people safe. Like, these are the things over the years that people have developed that has worked. But this is said many times that these are the rules the creatures have decided. How did they get these rules?
Message for you, son.
Anyway, Mina and her three companions, a young guy, a young woman, and an old woman, doesn't really matter their names because they're barely characters. None of them feel like real people. They're just there to move things along when needed and to allow for exposition drops periodically. Mina is trapped there for apparently months. The old woman's been there for years, and the other two at least 7 or 8 months.
8 months, 3 days.
Now, Mina was sent there for her job. Did her job just write her off as, like, stealing the bird? Like, nobody looks for her. Wouldn't you think the police would, like, head to try and find her? And seemingly there's only one route to where she was going, which, since she was sent by her job, they should know. It's not like she tried to take some random unknown shortcut and then fell into this trap. Like, this was just the GPS route that she followed.
Proceed on this road for 106 kilometers to reach your destination.
And presumably, her car is still stuck in the middle of the road, right? It also comes to light how this place got built in the first place. And it's so silly that it's shocking it passed a first draft. Basically, the movie is just a series of strange things that happen without really saying anything, just to extend the mystery as long as it can. Mina finds out that the creatures collect things and likes to watch them. That's why they're there, but that's kind of as far as it goes. They never really develop much of a plan. You'd think with the others being there so long, they would have been trying to figure out an escape, but other than just simply running, they have none. They just kind of stand around until the movie lets them discover something in the room that is mind-blowingly stupid, that just starts piling on the absurd story points until the quote-unquote twist has to happen. Apparently this is a family trait. And I'm not going to go too deep into the details of this beyond here, because once the movie kind of begins to take on water, it really doesn't stop. Bottom line is, I can't say this movie is a bad movie. It's just a real forgettable one. It's competently shot and it does have a nice look and feel, but the characters are boring and the story runs out of ideas beyond its premise. You could do a lot worse, but you can also do so much better. I'd give this movie a C, but let me know what you think.